All right, today we're jumping into a really fascinating book, Peter Attia's Outlive. And let me tell you, it's all about a radical new way to think about medicine. One that seriously challenges pretty much everything we've been taught about aging and how to live a long life.
So this all starts with a question that basically haunted Dr. Peter Attia when he was a top surgical resident. I mean, here's a guy at the absolute peak of his game, mastering these unbelievably complex surgeries. He described it as getting brilliant at catching the egg right before it smashes on the ground. But he just had this nagging feeling, this sense of futility. Because sure, he could save a patient on the operating table, but almost all of them would be gone within a few years anyway. He realized, the egg was going to hit the ground no matter what he did.
And that frustration, it led him to this huge insight. The problem wasn't him. It wasn't his skill as a surgeon. The problem was the entire system, the very framework of modern medicine itself.
He calls our current system Medicine 2.0. And look, it's incredible at what it does, reacting to problems. It's brilliant at those late-stage interventions, right? Think surgery for cancer that's already advanced or insulin for diabetes that's already full-blown. But it does almost nothing to stop those things from happening in the first place. So the goal he's pushing for is Medicine 3.0, a proactive, preventative approach that's focused not just on lifespan, how long we live, but on health span, how well we live.
Attia uses this absolutely brilliant metaphor to explain it. He says Medicine 2.0 is like being on the crew of the Titanic. You're out there scanning the horizon with your naked eye, and you only spot that giant iceberg when it's just a few hundred yards away. And then it's this desperate last-second panic to turn the ship. And we all know how that story ends.
Medicine 3.0, though, that's a whole different ballgame. It's like being the captain of a modern ship with GPS, with satellite imaging, the whole shebang. You're not trying to dodge icebergs at the last minute. No, you see the entire ice field days ahead of time, and you just make a tiny 1-degree course correction. You avoid the danger completely. That right there, that's the strategic shift.
And a new strategy like that? Well, it demands a completely new goal. The big, crucial shift is to stop being so obsessed with just extending our lifespan and to start obsessing over maximizing our health span. So, what is health span exactly? It's way more than just not being sick. It's about the quality of your years. It's about having the physical strength, the cognitive sharpness, the stability to really engage with your life, to do all the things that bring you joy, right into your final decade. To really get the difference, think about this story of a woman named Sophie. She was this vibrant person, and her absolute passion was her garden. She lived to be 83, which is a pretty good lifespan, right? But after a fall in her early 70s, her health just went downhill, fast. Her last 10 years were spent in pain. She couldn't garden anymore. She couldn't do the one thing she loved. She was alive, sure, but the life was gone. That's the tragic gap between a long lifespan and a short health span. So to make this goal feel real and tangible, Attia proposes this awesome exercise. He calls it your personal Centenarian Decathlon. Basically, you make a list of 10 or so physical things you want to be able to do in your last decade. And we're not talking about running a marathon here. It's things like, can you pick up your great-grandchild from the floor? Can you carry your own groceries up the stairs? Can you get up off the floor easily? You define the future you want, and then you work backward to build the health you need today to make it happen.
Okay, so having a goal like that, your personal decathlon, is a fantastic first step. But actually getting there, that takes a real strategy, not just a bunch of random health tips you found online. Attia brings in this great quote from Sun Tzu because, let's be honest, the health and wellness world is just obsessed with tactics. It's the latest diet, a new workout, some miracle supplement. But all that stuff is just noise if it isn't part of a plan that's actually designed for you. It's like firing arrows in the dark without a target.
So the Medicine 3.0 approach completely flips the script. It follows a very specific order. First, you define your objective. What's on your Centenarian Decathlon? Second, you build a strategy based on your own personal health risks and your goals. And only then, as the very last step, do you pick the tactics, the specific diet, the specific exercises, the specific supplements that will help you execute that strategy.
In this framework, it forces a really powerful shift in your thinking. You stop asking, oh, what supplement should I take? And you start asking, wait, what am I actually trying to accomplish here? And what's the smartest way to get there? It turns you from being a passive patient into the lead strategist for your own health.
But here's where the book takes a really profound turn. Because even the most perfect physical health strategy, it's not complete. Attia argues there is this huge, often forgotten pillar that can bring the whole house down: our emotional health. And he tells this just brutally honest story from his own life to prove his point. He's on a business trip, and his wife calls him from an ambulance, absolutely terrified. Their newborn son had stopped breathing. She just brought him back with CPR. And Attia's response, from hundreds of miles away, was this cold, clinical line. He didn't come home. He stayed on his trip for another 10 days. And for him, that was the moment he knew his own emotional health was in a state of absolute crisis.
This whole experience sent him on this deep journey into intensive therapy, where he learned about this concept called the trauma tree. The idea is that our adult problems, things like rage or addiction, or even stuff we think is good, like workaholism or perfectionism, those are just the visible branches. But they grow from these hidden roots of unaddressed childhood trauma. For Attia, he realized that relentless drive that made him a world-class surgeon was really just an adaptation to these deep wounds he had never even acknowledged.
This journey forced him to face this critical distinction, an idea he borrowed from the writer David Brooks: the difference between your resume virtues and your eulogy virtues. Resume virtues are all the things you put on a CV, right? Your degrees, your job titles, your awards. But your eulogy virtues, that's what people say about you at your funeral. Your character, your kindness, how you treated people. Attia realized his entire life had been this relentless quest for an impressive resume, and he'd sacrificed pretty much everything else.
And so, Outlive really leaves us with the ultimate question. The science in the book gives us the strategy, the how, to build a longer, healthier body. But the art of longevity, that's about building a life that is truly worth living. The real challenge isn't just to add more years to your life, but to make sure that when those years are over, your eulogy is every bit as impressive as your resume.